Hi, I'm Max Keiser. This is the Keiser Report. Rat bots. Have they caused the global Great Depression? Stacy?
Max, I think they may have, and I have some evidence here in this headline sent to me on Twitter by a G. Layden, and it is robot rat bullies real rats into depression, ... for science. So Max, to test for... Yes, that's a very good rat face there. Well, to test for antidepressants, pharmaceutical companies and scientists have had to use a large number of depressed rats. And in order to depress the rats, they've always done things like shocked them or near drown them. They throw them in water all the time. But the problem with this has always been that humans don't get depressed that way. So they've tried to find a way that more closely mimics how humans get depressed. And for this, they've created at Waseda University in Tokyo, the WR-3 rat bot. It's essentially an attack robot that bullies rats into a more realistic, human-like state of depression. The WR-3 is programmed with 3 kinds of bullying: chasing, continuous attacking, and interactive attacking. Chasing is exactly what it sounds like. WR-3 tries to stay close to the rat but never attacks it. Continuous attacking is where WR-3 continually rams the rat. With interactive attacking, WR-3 attacks the rat for 5 seconds whenever it moves and then stops. The Japanese researchers found that the most effective way of instilling depression is to continuously attack young rats and then use interactive attacks when they get older.
Well, a few things. First of all, the rats aren't depressed to begin with. Rats are in a state of rat-like behavior, and they're not depressed. But the pharmaceutical companies running out of humans to depress with antidepressants that make people more depressed to the point of killing themselves. They're looking to expand their business into the rat market, into the animal market, to sell more antidepressants. You know, people's pets are now buying antidepressants. You get antidepressants for your dogs, antidepressants for your cats, antidepressants for your goldfish. So this is the way pharmaceuticals, having destroyed the human race, are looking to get into the pet market and the animal market. As far as ramming goes, you know, this is the virtual human behavior. In other words, they have to teach the robots not to act like obnoxious rats, but to act like humans.
Yes, well, that's the purpose of that research. But, you know, if you compare it to the financial markets or the economy, this is what we see. We see this is the WR3 robot rat that causes depression. Look at the HFT robot rats that cause market depression. They cause the markets to depress because nobody wants to get in there because they're bullied by these algorithms, these HFT rats that bully you. They continuously ram you, or they have those 5-second intervals of spurts of the interval continuous ramming.
Right, and why are stockbrokers on drugs? Why do stockbrokers snort so much cocaine? Why do the brokers and bankers at JP Morgan and Goldman Sachs and Barclays and Royal Bank of Scotland, why do they sniff their weight in coke every morning just to get started, to begin their day rampaging through the market, stealing people's wealth? Because they're being treated like rats by the pharmaceutical companies to get them into a state of perpetual larceny, and it's working.
So the other way they do this is they chasing. So that's exactly what it sounds like. WR3 tries to stay close to the rat but never attacks it. And this is like the HFT, the high frequency trading front running, the constant front running in front of large trades by the pension funds, or the constant front running, as Professor Faketa said, in front of the Treasury market in terms of the Fed and the open market committees thing. So they're constantly front running us, chasing us. And if they're not doing that, they're continuously attacking, just scalping. We've seen that over and over. Whether it was the Bank of New York Mellon scalping every single time you put a trade through their bank, they scalp the trillions of dollars in pension fund money that goes through there.
Or what is CNBC but chasing? In other words, they stick Maria Bartiromo into the floor of the New York Stock Exchange. She's the only egg amongst a billion sperm, a trillion sperm. And then all these sperm-swallowed, psychotic, drug-snorting lunatics out there stealing people's money. They see this egg, Maria Bartiromo, and they chase, and they chase. And then CNBC captures it, and Jim Cramer goes like a monkey mad crazy, like he's being on drugs perpetually, like trying to chase people down that rabbit hole of wealth that only ends up in perpetual debt.
And the other, so we've seen the HFT bot, much like this WR3 rat bot. And then we have the Chief Ben Rat Bernanke bot, which is issuing constant QE1, QE2, QE3. Now they're on the iteration QE to infinity bot that is causing depression by the constant, they I think use the interactive attacking, this more advanced method for adults. So as soon as you start to get a little bit too complacent and think, okay, the worst is over, they announce yet another QE, round of QE, and it causes panic and stress in the participants, the rats that were fine before you started attacking them with these interactive attackings and chasings and distress.
That's right, QE and crashes. Easy money and crashes. Remember Hank Paulson, we'll crash the market, give us more QE. Or now Ben Bernanke is saying, we'll crash the market, give us more QE. Or in Europe, they're saying, give us more free money. In the UK now, the UK pound on the verge of oblivion. You've got this new Mark Carney coming in, this hockey puck shattered brain coming in from Canada to run the Bank of England saying, we're going to stimulate this economy, we're going to print lots of money. At the same time, he's saying, we're going to poke you by declaring that you need to be more ethical in your dealings. Of course, he doesn't want them to be ethical in their dealings. They want the drug smack of free money to curse through the veins of that corrupt economy into the hands of the city bankers who are down there every Friday and Saturday night getting blitzed.
Exactly. That's what the UK central bank and the US one are very good at, is that continuous attacking to the consumer. Shop, go shopping, go shopping. George Bush, of course, stood on the rubble of 9/11 World Trade Center shouting, go shopping, and that was the answer to everything. And that's the continuous attacking. Just keep on shopping, shopping, shopping.
That's
shopping.
right, and it's all known that George Bush was on Xanax. He's a heavily drug-addled, smack-induced psychopath who just got people to buy stocks until they killed themselves.
Well, no population in the world is more depressed, takes more antidepressants anyway, than France. The World Health Organization just recently said that the French are more likely to suffer a major depressive episode than any other nation on earth. The second to them was the United States, the Americans. So France's economic rut deepens, but borrowing is no problem. Economic data flagged a growing risk of recession in the Eurozone's second biggest economy, France. But investors nonetheless snapped up the country's bonds, banking on them as a safe bet.
Well, the French people are on speed. They're the biggest takers of pharmaceutical speed. I mean, everyone says, oh, those French people are so slim. It's because they're on crank. They snort crank every single day for breakfast. That's how they get so slim. The women, they're so slim, they're so healthy. No, they're on drugs. This is the biggest pharmaceutical market in Europe by far. The average French person takes 20 times more drugs than anybody else in the world. And you watch them driving, you see it, at the stoplight. If they don't get to the pharmacy in time to reload their smack prescription, beep, 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 gotta get to the pharmacy, gotta get my beep, 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 I'm coming down from my high, man.
It is a continuous attack methodology in the CR3 rat bot sort of method, but it also made me because we have the HFT bot, we have the QE3 bot mimicking the CR3 bot in the rat world. But here, I think in the headline, it gives you an indication of the underlying cause of this French malaise, and that is the DSK bot. Because I noticed a lot of these headlines about the sinking French economy. They keep on mentioning rut. They say France is in a rut. And of course, that's the sexual innuendo in there. It reminded me of the famous headlines from Dominic Strauss-Kahn. Dominic Strauss-Kahn, like a rutting chimpanzee, says alleged victim. Now, if you go to Google and enter a definition of rut, it says a long, deep track made by the repeated passage of the wheels of vehicles, or an annual period of sexual activity in deer and some other mammals during which the males fight each other for access to the females, or as a verb, engage in such activity, a rutting stag.
Well, with DSK, or Dominic Strauss-Kahn's case, here's a guy who overdosed on Viagra, and you can't keep it in his pants anymore, and he'll shtup mud. Doesn't make any difference.
Well, the biggest pharmaceutical giant in the world in terms of the #1 antidepressant is Zoloft, made by Keiser. Of course, they make Viagra as well.
It's a great cocktail of being happy and hard.
So, France is going to overshoot their budget. They're supposed to keep their budget deficit below the Maastricht Treaty regulations of 3%. It's going to be 3.6% this year. And their growth, they say, even in the most optimistic sense, if they take a load of antidepressants, is going to be 0.3% at best. But the business survey showed that business activity this month contracted at the fastest pace in nearly 4 years, Max. But investors sought more than twice the amount of fixed-rate medium-term bonds on offer and demanded only slightly higher yields than in recent auctions where France has borrowed at record low rates.
Well, there's the symbiotic relationship going on between the bond dealers and the central banks. They buy each other's bonds in this unholy alliance that not even this outgoing Pope would dare do in his worst pedophiliac nightmare. And this is supporting bond market to the point of this historic bubble, which is only months away from popping. And then you're going to find the French people paying 15% on their short-term debt and crying all the way to the pharmacy, and they'll run out of drugs, and then they're going to have to face their brie and stinky cheese for real.
Well, you know, at the top of the show, I talked about these WR3 rat bots. And how they do it is they do chasing, continuous attacking, or interactive attacking. And the heart of Europe is, of course, the constant attacking, the wars between Germany and France. And this is kind of brought up in this piece here, because they're saying that what we're seeing is that there's a continued trend of investors piling into French bonds, though their economy is shrinking. And according to Market, who reports on the PMI index, the Purchasing Managers Index, they're saying that there's a widening chasm between France and Germany. Germany's growing, France is sinking. The French industry minister, Arnaud Montebourg, just came out saying he wants the ECB to start debt monetization. He wants a lower euro. Germany, of course, is growing. They say we're all fine. But they're indicating that while the rest of the world is continuing to treat France like a core country, it is actually looking on paper more like a peripheral country. And again, this is the French arrogance does not like being peripheral to Germany. And once again, yet again, in the several hundred years, they are peripheral to Germany.
Yeah, but this was all in the plan, going back to Mitterrand, who got suckered by Germany by allowing reunification of East and West Germany. Mitterrand believed the concept put forward by Germany at the time that, well, if you reunite Germany, it'll be under the rubric of this multi-nation Eurozone under the Euro. And now here we are 10, 15 years later, and we find that, oh, only Germany has a solvent economy. Everyone else is falling into the muck, including France. That means that Germany effectively runs Europe. They'll have the only functioning banking system. The Euro, ECB is the Euro, is Frankfurt. They're kicking Britain out of the Eurozone. David Cameron's saying, we're not sure if we want to be part of the Eurozone. Frankfurt and Germany are saying, we don't want you anywhere near Frankfurt because we want all that business here. So this is the Fourth Reich. This is what they couldn't accomplish in the last century. Germany will accomplish in this century. You know, maybe they've learned from their mistakes. We can't assume that it'll be a bad thing.
Well, digging into the data, it shows that there's an increasing schism within the Eurozone. National divergences between France and Germany have widened so far this year to the worst seen since the survey began in 1998. Germany is on course to grow in the first quarter. In contrast, France's downturn is likely to deepen, bringing the euro area's second largest member in line with the periphery, then with the now solitary-looking German core.
All right, well, I guess France will have to surrender. They haven't done that yet this century. All right, Stacey Herbert, thanks so much for being on the Keiser Report.
Thank you, Max.
Don't go away, stay right there. Much more coming your way. Welcome back to the Keiser Report. I'm Max Keiser. Special pleasure now to introduce back to the show Pierre Jovanovic. Pierre, welcome back to the Keiser Report.
Bonjour, Max. Merci.
All right, Pierre, a minister's home was attacked in the past week here in France. Which minister, and what was the motive? I smell the acrid smell of revolution.
So the name of the minister was Mr. Le Foll, which means Mr. Crazy. So it's quite interesting. And he's the Minister of Agriculture. And this reminds us something here in France. It's it's the smell. Not of napalm, but of revolution, you know?
Right.
Morning.
It's fantastic, revolution.
So they started at 3 o'clock in the morning, I think, if I remember well. That was like a couple of days ago. And because there's almost one peasant who's, I don't know if it's the right term, I'm sorry, who is committing suicide every day. And this is extremely difficult right now in France.
Repeat that. One peasant per day is committing suicide.
Yes.
In what, the French, where? In France?
Yes.
Really?
Yes. It's dramatic. And the National French Railways made a statement that the number of suicides jumped 30% You know, the people who put their body on the tracks.
Right, they jump on, right.
So since this jumped in 1 year.
Of course, in the United States, we don't call them peasants, we call them consumers. Now, of course, we usually do the show in London, Pierre, and we notice that there's a high concentration of young French people in London. There's supposedly something like 500,000 actually in London. Is this a healthy sign of the economy, or is that a bad thing?
I think it's a bad thing. It's a good thing for another word, but it's a bad thing because the smart people are leaving France, and people who are productive are leaving the country, and people who are not very productive are getting in. So it's a real problem.
There's a brain drain.
I mean, it's a brain drain also in England. It's also the same thing in Germany or Spain or Italy. You need to see that.
Right, and. There was a big story recently. The Titan Tire Company, the boss, Maurice Taylor, he recently asked, "Do you think we're stupid?" when asked by the French government to hire French workers. He claimed the French spend 3 hours talking and just 3 hours working. Your thoughts? This was a big story.
Yes, this was a big story because it was it was a kind of provocation. Let me remind you something very important from Goldman Sachs, your friends, your best friends at Goldman Sachs. A Goldman Sachs banker said I think it was the Huffington Post, that all the French salaries need to be taken down of 30%. So, which is absolutely crazy. I mean, think about that. How a Goldman Sachs banker dare, to come up, and say, all the salary of all the French people or Italian or English people need to be lowered by 30%. This is absolutely crazy. Why? Because they are putting in France the same plan as in Greece.
Right.
You have seen it. So in Greece, all the salaries have been taken down of 30%. And this is extremely difficult. So, on top of that, we had Mr. Taylor telling to a French minister and the French government and French people, that they're just a bunch of lazy people, which is totally false, utterly false, because even it was in the Business Insider a huge piece saying that the French people are the most productive in the whole world. So you can find it.
Right, on an hour by hour basis, productivity in France is high. But you mentioned Goldman Sachs, you mentioned Greece. We know that before Greece collapsed, Goldman Sachs was in Greece.
Yes.
They cooked the books. They got Greece to join the euro under false pretenses.
Exactly.
They did a deal with Lloyd Blankfein, and the head of Greece, Papandreou, got together, and John Paulson, a hedge fund manager, talked about destroying the economy and selling off the parts, the bits and pieces, as they're doing now.
Yes.
So this is a leveraged buyout of a country. It was a financial takedown of a country because Greece was only a $300 billion economy. They attacked it with financial weapons, essentially, credit default swaps, naked short selling. And now they're selling off bits and pieces, and they're like a leveraged buyout. Like if Carl Icahn ran Greece.
Same plan.
Okay, now it's moving to France.
Yes.
Okay, the French people are, I get the sense that they aware of what's really going on and they are ready to revolt, or are they kind of sleepwalking into losing their sovereignty as Greece has lost its sovereignty?
There's a part of sleepwalking, exactly. Same thing as Greece, because of the mainstream media didn't explain, to people what's happening. They're lying. Nobody's talking about Goldman Sachs. But things are deteriorating because there is no day or no week that big companies, are laying off like 100 or even 1,000 of people. It's, it's non-stop since May of 2012. So French people are aware that something is definitely wrong and that politicians are lying. And this is why they attacked this politician. He is left-wing. Think about that. This is something new. They're never attacked like left-wing socialist. That's something new here.
Right.
It's like the revolution stuff coming, starting again, brewing.
Well, when the big financial crisis hit in the 2008 period, within 18 months or so, France, they reacted. They lowered tax on restaurants, etc., which seemed to give people a sense that they were muddling through, that they were able to get. But now what you're describing is that there's another big down leg, that there's a truly more impactful down leg to this crisis, and it's starting to really cut into people, and there's a lot of layoffs, right? So this is real. Is this the real thing? I mean, French people, but you say the mainstream media doesn't really communicate what's going on.
Televisions. Yeah.
Right. So now you've got probably the most popular blog in France, I would say, in the economic space. And your books, by the way, your new book on Blythe Masters, The Devil of Wall Street, I think that's the subtitle, or The Wicked Witch Who Destroyed the World with Credit Default Swaps. I'm quoted in the book, by the way, so it's coming out in English, so we have to look for this. But and you have a radio show here as well.
Yes.
So how is that message? Is the message going to get through, or are we just going to wake up one day and they're storming the barricades and the revolution is on? I mean, you really think that there's going to be a coup, a revolution for real?
I think that there's a, we can start it. The socialist government is doing crazy things. Think about that. They're going to start to put taxes, on the government subsidies. I mean, given to families who have like 3 or 4 children. I mean, this is weird. I mean, if they wanted to create a revolution, that would be the best idea to put forward. They're desperate, to taking money from people. They don't know how to. So, and even the most weirdest thing is that they're socialist, because this kind of politics are expected, from right-wing stuff, So people are totally lost now. They're even worse than the worst of the worst right wing.
Right.
That's the point.
Okay. Well, of course, in the past, countries would have the option of devaluing their currency. But, of course, France is part of the euro. So, like Greece, they don't have that option to devalue the currency. Is this setting up in some antagonism with Germany? Because talk a little bit about that.
The antagonism with Germany was already seen almost 1 year ago when the French Socialist Party started to attack Angela Merkel politics and economics, and now it just widens. So this means basically that Germans are getting richer and the French are getting poorer, to put it simply. And it's very dangerous, as it always was. And especially, we are in Italy. They have a specific gauge, to see, how the economy is widened between the Italian economy and the Germans, because this is the main track, of what's going to happen, and we cannot leave. Nobody can leave Germany, take over the whole economy, and if this is continuing, they will do it. Euro will be a mark. Basically it's a mark.
Right. It seemed that when the Euro project got started with Mitterrand, that there was this idea that, well, we can reunify the 2 Germanys, but they'll be under the umbrella of Europe. So they won't. The Teutonic genie won't come out of the bottle. And we're not talking about the Fourth Reich anymore. I mean, they're going to be watered down by the Europe. But now all the other countries except Germany are becoming insolvent. So they haven't Germany pull a fast one, and they're going to be essentially doing what they tried to do 3 times
Germany
before.
Germany wants his gold back,
Right. We'll talk about this. Germany wants their gold back. They were told by the...
This is funny, Max. I mean, think about Wagner piece, the Rhine gold. The gold was stolen. They were looking for the gold. The history is repeating himself again. It's quite interesting.
Right. Now, Germany supposedly has 3,000 tons of gold, but a lot of it's held overseas. They're trying to repatriate the gold. They've been told, well, you can't have it for 7 years. Is that going over well?
7 years of reflection.
Right. Meanwhile, countries around the world are asking to repatriate their gold. France has a lot of gold.
Yes.
And Italy has a lot of gold.
Yeah, Sarkozy sold 600 tons of gold.
Is that right? I didn't hear about that. Sarkozy sold 600 tons?
Exactly.
When did this happen?
When he was Minister of Budget, that was like, I think like 10 years ago, same period as Tony Blair, if I remember well.
Really?
Yeah, the English PM sold 400 tons.
Gordon Brown.
Brown, I'm sorry. Brown sold 400 tons and Sarkozy sold 600. So that was, but at the same time, as Fekete said...
Professor Fekete.
Exactly. The Americans didn't sold any gram of their gold. How
right.
come? This was made for, to save the dollar, to keep the gold, low, very, very low, so that people will think that everything is, everything is well, and bees and are flying around, and this is,
Not to worry. But I've got to ask you about Gerard Depardieu. He's now Russian.
Yes.
Your thoughts?
My thought is that in his name there is God, Dieu, hein? Voilà. And Dieu left, a quitté la France. Hein? Donc,
God has left.
God has left. So it's if we may, take that on this level, it's quite scary.
But the French people are actually depressed about this because they really venerate Depardieu, and he's kind of left France, and this is...
Venerate, we cannot say that we venerate, but this is just the top of the iceberg, which shows that things are really, really wrong everywhere. That very rich people, are able to get out of this very heavy taxation system, and that poor people, are paying even more. So this is something very new.
Pierre, we got to go. Thanks for being on the Keiser Report.
Merci, Max.
And that's going to do it for this edition of the Keiser Report with me, Max Keiser, and Stacey Herbert. I want to thank my guest, Pierre Jovanovic. If you want to send me an email, please do so at keiserreport@rttv.ru. Until next time, Max Keiser saying bye, y'all.